Welcome back into the burn. We have another blazing episode for all y'all. We have a special guest today who I will bring in here in a minute, Mr. Phil McClintock. He is the head coach of the men's basketball team at Friends University. But let's give you a little background on him because maybe you don't know. McClintock, he is in his second season with the Friends University Falcons. McClintock brings a stark familiarity of the KCAC to Friends University. He highlighted an 8-year tenure as the associate men's basketball head coach at Ottawa University. At Ottawa, McClintock served as the recruiting coordinator and was responsible for film breakdown and scouting reports. In 2019 to 2020 was a breakout season. McClintock brought in 6 of the team's top 10 players that produced a school record 28 victories, a record season KCAC championship, and an NAIA Sweet 16 appearance. Although the tournament ended not because of a loss, but due to COVID 19. His first career coaching job was a 2-year tenure as an assistant coach and recruiting coordinator at William Woods University from 2010 to 2012. McClintock also played collegiately at Ottawa and enjoyed some pretty good success, earning 2 NAIA All America honors, a pair of all KCAC nods, while finishing his career as the all time leader in block shots and top 5 all time in scoring, rebounding, and steals. An Ottawa University Hall of Fame inductee in 2021, he helped the Braves to 2 conference titles and a pair of NAIA Sweet 16 berths. So let's go ahead and bring on Mr. McClintock. How's it going, man?
It's good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, friends, they had a really great season. They ended with 24 wins on the campaign. Compared to last season, it was a great step forward where they only had 9 wins. Although
Mhm.
they lost in the second round to number 1 College of Idaho, the Falcons had their best season in 11 years with a 24-8 record. Is there anything you want to speak on in regards to how the season was?
Yeah, it was a great year. Me and my staff, we have been here. My assistant Isaac Yaramio have been here for 2 years. We took over. The team had finished in last place and only won 5 games. And last year was not fun. Our first year was not very fun. We only won 9, but everybody was funny because everybody at the school is like, "Man, you guys have progressed so much, and this was such a great year, or good step forward." And it was like it sure didn't feel like a good step forward. It was not fun winning 9 games, um, but we knew we made progress. And coming to this year, we lost a few guys that probably helped us in the long run, guys that could play, and we brought in a really good class, and we knew they were good, but we didn't know they would mesh quite like they did. And you bring in good players that play well together, and it's hard in this era, the transfer portal era, and everybody's getting transfers, which we did. And, not all of them, but we had a lot of new guys, and they just played well together. They loved each other. They played for each other, and it showed in our win-loss record.
Yeah, it was definitely an improvement from last season. Um, just one thing, you had the opportunity to go out to Caldwell, Idaho. That's right, Caldwell,
Coldwell.
Idaho. Not
Hmm.
exactly a place that you can point out on the map, but maybe you can now.
Yeah, no, for sure. I know where it's at now.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
competed against number 9 seeded Florida Memorial, where
Hmm.
you had a gritty 63-60 win, and then you played number 1 seeded College of Idaho, where you lost 75-65.
Hmm.
Where you showed your never give up attitude that this team has been all season and played tough all the way until the final buzzer. But before we talk about the game itself, what was it like playing in the national tournament where Friends has been absent for a couple of years?
It was cool. It was our goal every year to start the season. Our number one goal is to make the national tournament.
Right.
And so we knew that was the goal. We talked about it in our preseason meetings. So to be able to meet that goal in year two for us, after, it'd been 3 years or so since, maybe 4, since Friends had a winning season. And so to be able to meet that goal was really cool for our guys. And you want it one way or the other. You want it really close to home if you're going to go to the national tournament. So hopefully you get a good crowd. Or you want it kind of far away so you can make it a trip. And that's at least my opinion. And we got it the second way. And so it was obviously in Idaho, and we flew, and it was a 5-day trip. And, we had guys, to me, it's all about experiences. We had 4 guys who had never flown, and a lot of our guys hadn't flown in a long time. And so to be able to get on a plane and to do that together and to have all the experiences and, win or lose, just to do that together as a team was really, really cool. The guys obviously earned it, having a great year. But it was really cool for those guys, and it's something that they'll never forget.
Yeah, of course. I mean, traveling as a team, going to the national tournament, it's got to be an awesome time for them. But getting that 8 seed, it really wasn't too bad. You kind of knew what you were walking into, and you had a pretty good chance of walking out of there with a victory. You hadn't had a victory in the national tournament for a few years as well. And can you talk about the experience about being a part of the national tournament, because that hasn't happened in a couple of years for the Friends University Falcons?
Yeah, it's hard. For us, our league there's 2 NAI divisions that have merged into one division.
Right.
And so now there are 64 teams that make it. Since that merge, our league has got 4 teams in every single year. And so, going into the league, you're going into the year, that if you finish top 4 at this point, at least, you have a good chance of making it, even if you don't have a automatic berth winning the regular season or the tournament. So, which is what we did. We knew, with our RPI, they have some rating system, strength of schedule that they use. We were receiving votes. So we knew we were there. We were probably in. Getting 8 seed, like you mentioned, top 8 seeds wear white, the home team at the national tournament, which for us is pretty cool. You're, I don't know that we were favored, probably not, to be honest, but going to that first game wearing whites means you're a higher seed in that first game, which is really cool. If you look at it, in a wide perspective there. So all that was cool. We knew at that point, like, if we had potentially won the conference tournament, we were 1 game back in the regular season. And so obviously Oklahoma Wesleyan won our regular season, and they deserved to. But if we would have, even made our conference championship, maybe we would have got a higher seed. But we knew going out there was going to be tough, playing at College of Idaho.
Yeah.
You play Florida Memorial. Their coach has won a national championship at the NAIA level at Shawnee State 3 or 4 years ago. And then, we didn't know we were going to win that game. We won the first game. The next game we're playing against, Colby Blaine, and he's won a national championship 2 years ago, with the same players that we're getting ready to play. So it's never going to be easy at that point, and that it's going to be a dogfight. So it was, just the experience for our guys getting there and meeting that goal, and then, in my opinion, exceeding it with that first round win was cool.
Yeah. And then there was the experience off the court when you got to fly with your team and travel alone. It can be a struggle sometimes. We all know how travel is. Sometimes good, sometimes bad, but you got to spend some extra time with your guys when this could have been their last time for some of those guys. And What's unique about this is your travel to Idaho. A lot of people probably haven't gone there yet. Caldwell, Idaho. Can you
Mhm.
speak on that unique experience?
Yeah, it was the first time. So our athletic trainer, Serena, her husband is from Boise,
Oh,
and so she had been there, and so she gave us, she at least had some familiarity. Nobody else had been to Boise, which so Caldwell is an extended suburb, so it's pretty much attached, extended about 30 minutes from Boise where we flew in. So it wasn't like it was in the middle of nowhere, which we didn't know, obviously. And so, but it was a smaller town and it was a college town. It was a really cool experience being able to play there and see, that school and see the fans that showed up and packed gym. I mean, over 2,000 people. Crazy experience, tailgating. We got there the second day on Saturday, and there were 50 people outside tailgating and partying, having a good time, and razzing us a little bit as we walk in. We walk into the gym, and there are 75 old people sitting there with cheering on their players as they come out. Stuff like that's unique. It really is at our level, and it was a really impressive experience. So.
ICT Sports says go Falcons. Absolutely. So then you get to Idaho and you play Florida Memorial and you get to celebrate a 63-60 win being the final score when it was tied at 27 at halftime. Obviously, there were adjustments that were made.
Mhm.
A bit of a lower scoring game than you're probably used to, but
Yep.
in a grinded out type of game, that's what March Madness is circled around. Survive and
Yep.
advance. That's the name of the game. Even though the Falcons didn't shoot the ball all that well, you certainly made it challenging for Florida Memorial on the defensive side of the floor.
Yeah, yeah, they were a good team, and they were, their RPI was in the 20s, higher than ours. Ours was 30. We knew it was going to be really tough. It was a pretty tough draw first round for us. But I was actually talking to somebody about this today. If you think about it, both of us had lost in our conference semifinal games, so neither of us had played for a week and a half. We hadn't played organized basketball, and you take a team from Miami, Florida, a team from Wichita, Kansas, and you put them in Boise, Idaho, or Caldwell, and you play on a neutral site, it's probably not going to be the most pretty game ever because, rewatching that, I'm like, man, we are way better than what we played. And I'm sure, Florida Memorial's thinking the same thing. And so when you're involved, the great thing about our team in this year has been that this team that we just finished with is they have toughed out games like that. And that's why they won. So, we won 24 games because it didn't matter. You didn't have to just be on offensively. We found a way to win, and it was ugly. And it was a grinder, and everybody was tired and in a random place. And it was really cool to be able to grind that out, to tough that out. They had been in the national tournament with a lot of the same guys the year before, so I had that experience, which we did not, at least at our level, and so it was a really cool thing to see. I rewatching that game, super proud because holy cow, it was ugly, and so, but like I said, what do you expect when you put each of those teams in that situation? You can't expect for that high level of offense or basketball to be played. So
Yeah, it was just it was it's a crazy scenario,
mhm,
It's got to be difficult being off for a week and a half and then having to
mhm.
turn that switch on and jump right back into basketball mode when it's losing, you're done.
Mhm.
Um, So can you speak a little bit on what it's like to turn that switch on? Like, how do you as a coach get your players to turn that switch on? Because it's not automatic.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing, and I'm sure that every coach that is coached or every player that's played in national tournaments, can give you that experience where you have to wait a while. I mean, BCS football, championship series football does it for they're a month off. It's kind of for me as a coach, you want to. It's tricky because you want to stay in shape, you want to stay in game shape, but the last thing that I want as a coach is to risk injury to where you have, one of your top players or even a rotation guy gets dinged up or injured and can't play.
Right.
So it's a balancing act on staying healthy and staying sharp. And so, we went pretty much live every other day, and we conditioned to try to stay in shape. And then we kind of backed off. We played on a Friday, and we didn't do anything live Wednesday or Thursday before. I don't think there's any perfect rhyme or reason. I think each team's probably different, but it's definitely something. I mean, I made some calls to multiple coaches who had been there and had done it, and had success. Like, hey, what's your method? What are your thoughts on, how you prepare for that? So,
Yeah, I mean, if you're just turning in, we're talking to Phil McClintock, the Friends University basketball head coach. But coach, getting back at it here, down the stretch, you were leading by 6 with 45 seconds to go, and Randy Wolf Jr. gets a layup to go, but then you get a three to fall by Khalees Lee to give you a 4-point lead. And then the game comes down to free throws.
mm-hmm.
Randy Wolf Jr. knocks down 2. KJ Spiller with 2 seconds left in the game and a 1-point game. Talk about pressure. After Florida Memorial made a 3, Spiller stepped to the line and made 2 monumental free throws. Can you
Mm-hmm.
talk about how your team had to go through the pressure cooker and rise to the occasion in order to close the game out on the stripe?
Yeah, I mean, great teams do that. We've been in a lot of close games, and I would think most coaches would tell you when you have a good year, you have to win a lot of close games, and it's scary and it's tough, and when things are tight. We were lucky. We're a pretty good shooting team, and so it's funny. I mean, we practice scenarios like that all the time in practice, and we one of our plays, we had a couple leads where I thought that we were going to win, and then it kept getting tighter, and they made 3 after 3, getting back, and some really tough ones too. And so, I thought we had iced it when you talked about Randy made a layup. We went to him inside. He made a layup, went to him again inside, similar play, kicked it out for Khalees Lee, who banged a 3. And that I thought was probably going to do it. Well, they kept bringing it close enough to where we had to make free throws. And we had plays in, set where, hey, who do we want to get it to? And it's funny if you ask my guys, that last time out we had one more play. It was under 6 seconds or whatever, and we're up 1. Like, hey, who do we want to go to? There are a lot of people that said me, and I'm like looking around. Somebody tell me what we want. It's like, okay, let's go to KJ. He's co-player of the year. He's carried us here, and we had ran the play we ran to get him the ball to get fouled probably 2 to 3 times all year. But we had just practiced it so many times, and they knew, and they executed it perfectly. Got him the ball. He got fouled, and the game was over.
So, in those late game situations, coaches normally dig into their tool bag. Did you drop a certain set for your good free throw shooters, or was it just normal sets?
Yeah, well, we have late game sets for pretty much all scenarios. But I mean, if you have your full length baseline sets, we have a certain spot. We usually have a first and second option, and so in that scenario, we're like, okay, we want to get Cade. Well, one, we ran a set where we have run this year, and Randy Wolf goes long, and we threw a baseball pass, and he got a dunk, and they end up making a 3, really, really tough 3 in the corner. And the next set was, hey, okay, we're going to KJ. If that's not there, we have a secondary place where I couldn't tell you right now if we had Khalees or Randy there, because Randy just made 2 free throws. And so, but we have a lot of guys that we trust at the line. So we have went to multiple guys, which is probably unique. Not having just one, hey, this is our guy we go to, which a lot of teams have. We have been lucky that, hey, we have somebody who has the hot hand that day. We may go to them late to get that bucket.
Yeah. So you get the win against Florida Memorial, and that sets up a matchup with a program, College of Idaho. They're like the Patriots of the 2000s. Uh,
They have been for sure.
And you are walking in their house. So me doing my due diligence here is just about they're just about as good at every sport they play at the university. They were hosting you in their environment.
Hmm.
You were we can call it the yoke pound if you want.
Hmm.
Uh, they were hosting you. You were facing a crowd that was pro Coyotes or Yotes, as their
Hmm.
fan base likes to call them.
Right.
Can you speak on the environment when you played
Hmm.
the Yotes, and how many fans did we even have there?
Yeah, those are good questions. Well, first of all, it was not an ideal situation for us to try to win a basketball game. So that's something I'll tell you right now. Like, and we knew because we played the night before. We played Friday, and nobody. Yeah, there were a few fans there for our game, but by the end of our game, and we watched. Our guys watched half of the next game when College of Idaho played UC Merced, and us coaches stayed for the rest. But they saw. I mean, it was full and it was rowdy, and so we knew it was coming. And then, I mean, we came like I told you earlier. They're tailgating, and I haven't confirmed this, but it is not a dry campus. So let me just put it that way. There were racks. I didn't see any kegs, but there was alcohol being thrown around, and there were bunch of meat there being cooked, and these people did not want us to win, and then we knew that. As far as I knew, we had 5 people there, and so we did have a few fans. Or yeah, I know. So it wasn't just us. Our athletic director, our president, her husband, and then our graduate assistants, mom and dad were all there, and they were cheering for us. But that was it. And so um, I don't know how many the gym holds. It was huge. I would say there were at least 2,000, maybe 2,500 people. It was as good, and I've obviously played in the NAI, have coached now 10 years, now 12, including my GA ship. It was as good of an environment as I've seen, and as rowdy and as it was hostile. It wasn't like anything over the top, but it was hostile. They were wanting to beat us, and so um, after the game, I told our guys, "Hey, that was a bad situation, obviously, to play in. We got to get ourselves in a better seeding situation where you're not playing the best team in the nation on their home floor in round 2. So that's just a fact, and that's where we were, and it wasn't a good situation. But I was proud of our guys. We kept our heads. We didn't never complained, never turned it on the fans or the officials. We just battled. So I was proud of them.
So you faced a crowd that was just about anything you've ever experienced. You're facing the number one seed in their house. You're facing a team that has skill at every position. The Yotes end up winning 75-65, where they
Mm-hmm.
led 41-22 at the half.
Yep.
The second half, it was more of a comeback game where the Coyotes weren't really threatened. But one thing you can say about this team is that they never gave up and they
Mm-hmm.
fought until the final whistle. As a coach, that's what you kind of hope is going to happen through every game, whether you're leading or not. What stood out to you in this game against one of the top teams in the country in the College of Idaho, who
Mm-hmm.
won a national title 2 years ago, like you said?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we knew. I mean, they're the number one overall seed for a reason. They were favored to win the whole thing, which they did. I mean, they're the national champion. Or it's funny. So them playing at home against UC Merced, I think they won by 13. They beat us by 10. They didn't have a closer game by, I mean, a decent amount if you look at their scores in Kansas City. And so we were the closest game in the national tournament for them, on the road. So to me, that says a lot. Where do we want to go as a program? Being able to play teams like that on the road in that environment where it's win or go. I mean, win or go home, national tournament. That's the highest level, and that's what we saw. And we lost by 10. Like you said, it never was a game where we threatened to win. But we battled, and their coach got a tee with 3 minutes left, and their fans were upset, and so no more victories. But we didn't lay down, and we were there, and we were battling, and I was super proud of our guys because that environment and that team that's been together, that's won a national championship, that won another one, they were good. They were as good as it gets. And I was super proud of our guys. And like you said, I mean, there was no quit in them. And I think anybody who watched that and, you just look at the scores and you could see that we were competing.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to have any idea of College of Idaho, they played Langston after they played you guys. They beat them by 30.
Mm-hmm.
Their next closest game was when they played Georgetown College in Kentucky. They won by 12.
Mm-hmm.
But in the in the championship game, they beat Oklahoma Wesleyan by 28 points. It's like, this is when you talk about a stacked team, this team was stacked on just about every level. But one thing I did read up on is they had 2 graduate transfers, and they had, I believe, 3 seniors. So whatever they do in the off season to try to run this thing back, it's going to be very difficult to do.
Yeah. No, they all their 2 grad transfers, from what I understand, were there, or not grad transfers, but grad students that are using like their COVID year. So they were still around from their national championship team. So this team had been around. And so that only makes it harder. You have a team that's that much a veteran team.
Yeah. It was definitely going to be a tough game from the outset. Can you speak on the type of zone that they were playing and how it affected your squad? Did you try to make any adjustments? I know you did. I'm sure going 1 for 12 from 3-point land, I'm sure that didn't really help matters much.
No, it was a really, really impressive zone. I don't think you could just teach a group of guys to run that zone that hadn't been together for a long time and run it as well as they ran it. It was impressive. Just to give you a little timeline, we prepared for Florida Memorial. We did not prepare that much for College of Idaho going in. We had a scout done. Our second assistant, he did a scout, so we had their scout prepared, but we hadn't looked at it as a team. So we win the game. We watch a half of theirs, and then obviously me and my staff go back and we prep for that game. We're in my hotel room till midnight getting preparations. Next morning, we watch film at 11, and then we have a 1-hour walkthrough, which is all we were allotted the next morning. So we had 1 hour on the court to prep for them. So if that tells you anything, how much prep time, which is that if you talk to coaches at any level, there are a lot of times in national tournament games, it's back to back. And so you have to prepare as much as possible and roll it out there. Preparation for their zone, it was really, really tough. It was a matchup zone. Anytime you got to the middle, they encouraged you to get it to the middle, which is unique. And then they guard you one-on-one. They match up out of it. Just to be 100% transparent, we put in 3 or 4 sets, things that have been in, against the zone. Things we thought would work, and every single one we ran in the first half against them did not work. So they just had, whether they made it to get, hard to get into the middle of the zone, they dare you to shoot from the top of the key, but they still contest it. It was really difficult. And what they want you to do, which we knew, is to throw it in the middle of the zone and then go one-on-one against that person. And we talked about it. We don't want to do that. We don't, that's what they want. Well, we end up, 5 times in the first half. That's what we end up doing because that's all they give you. Yeah. And so they were that good. It's funny because in the first half, hey, we're coach our guys up and we try to execute that. Nothing works. The second half, we go, hey, we're just going to screen the top of the zone and just play basketball. And then, hey, you beat them by 10 in the second half or 11. And that works better. So, I mean, that's basketball, that's coaching, but it was a really good zone, and it really impressive to see.
Maybe you'll take some of that zone and put it into your playbook next season.
I might. I know it was pretty good. It was hard to score against.
Yeah, for sure. So as you reflect on this season and even go back to last season when you first got here, it was basically a 180. I mean, you went from winning 9 games last season, and now you go to 24 games this season, and you make the national tournament. You get a win in the national tournament, and the kicker here is, I think you're bringing back so many players from this team into next season. I think you have a like one senior. This kind of feels like we're just getting started here. We're just dipping our feet in the water. So as you sit back and reflect on the season, what stood out most to you?
Yeah, I mean, we've had time to reflect. I think now we're moving forward and recruiting, and we played for the first time as a group today since the national tournament, and so because we were on spring break right after, so we've had a couple weeks. To me, I'm super proud of those guys. I've been a part of a lot of good teams, been lucky enough to do that, and these guys, like any good team and great team, they just really meshed. They loved each other. They played together on both ends. And there was really no quit. I mean, we were in so many tight games. We went through so much. Um, we lost guys. We lost, a starter at semester that would have been an all conference player due to grades. We lost another starter due to an injury right before the conference tournament. And every single time we faced adversity, somebody stepped up and they did it together. And so that was, reflecting, that was the best thing for me and the most enjoyable thing. It wasn't the wins and losses. Those come, but it was with our dudes and how they reacted to adversity and played together.
Yeah, I mean, so let's go ahead and move on to, uh, some March Madness here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's it's going to be interesting to get a coach's perspective. I know what my
Mm-hmm.
perspective is.
Who are
What
you rooting for?
I picked the Dukies.
Okay. Yeah. They're good, but that's unfortunate for you.
I just it's kind of like fingernails on a chalkboard or pliers to a tooth. I really didn't want to,
Okay.
but
Well, that's all I needed to hear. So that's good.
my team, North Carolina,
Gotcha.
they shouldn't even been in the tournament to begin
Right.
with. But
Sure.
it is what it is.
Yeah.
Maybe you can go coach North Carolina for me, coach.
I'd love to.
So, what have you thought of the tournament so far? It's been there's really only one word to explain it. It's just different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's been, well. I mean, you say that, it's funny because I don't disagree. But all 4 1 seeds are in the Final Four. So, which is, I mean, I saw something on, I think it was ESPN or something. I think it's the first time that's happened since 2008. I think when KU won, which is my team. And so I love basketball, so I've watched. I've been a little saddened, less excited because KU's out of it. Now, I'm not one of those guys that pick KU to win it every year because I'm not stupid. So, but I did think I picked them to win a few, 2 games maybe. I picked initially Florida to win the championship. They're good. After watching everybody and just watching obviously the games, I think Duke is playing the best, and I hate Duke, and so it's hard for me to say that. So as long as I thought you were going to say you're a Duke fan, and I obviously going to have an issue with that, but I respect, if you're a fan of somebody else and you pick them just because they're good, I respect that. I think Houston is playing as good as anybody else. So if I had to guess, I mean, one of those teams will win it. So
Yeah, I don't know, a little history about my Duke non-fandom.
sure,
I was visiting one of my friends in North Carolina years ago,
gotcha.
probably 15, 20 years ago.
Yep.
And he didn't remember that I was a North Carolina fan. And So he was about 10 minutes away from Duke. So he goes and gets a sticker, and he gives me a sticker.
Mm,
He said, "Hey, I missed your birthday. Here you go." I said, "How do you want me to destroy this? Via torch or lighter?"
right.
Uh, And he realized real quick. I'm like, "Yeah, Duke fans do not like North Carolina fans, and it's the
No.
same way around."
Right.
But you know, I don't know when it's Florida. I picked Florida and Duke for the championship game,
Yep.
but I'm just it's almost like Florida shouldn't be here
Hmm.
because they grinded it out against UConn
Yeah.
and barely won by the
Hmm.
skin of their teeth.
Yep.
And then you go up against Texas Tech. If Texas Tech makes their free throws, they win the game. And
Right.
it's just I don't know.
But sometimes things like that, it's like you're a team of destiny and that propels you. Because I
Yeah.
mean, if you look at Duke, if they had a game within 10, I mean, in this NCAA tournament, I know the last game they played was fairly close, but
I
I mean,
think
they're smacking people.
I think even it was 2-0, maybe.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. So I mean, if you get them in a close game and they haven't been there in the tournament, sometimes things tighten up. When you're Florida, they could think, "Hey, I've been here," and sometimes as a coach, that's my thought is, "Hey, we're battle tested. We love close games. You're in a timeout late, and we've been here before." Duke and Shire. Hey, Cooper Flag's never been to that tournament. Now he's a
Right.
stud.
It's just it's kind of crazy to me. I want Kelvin Sampson to get that championship,
Yeah,
even if it does make me lose my bracket. I don't care.
yeah,
And his name is Kelvin, not Kevin. So
that's right.
just so everybody knows.
Yeah.
But we did have a couple of questions. I don't know how much you can divulge, but we will go ahead and show this. ICT Sports has. Have you had any offers for a Division 1 coaching job?
No,
No.
no,
Okay.
no. I've had no offers for any other coaching jobs currently, and not that I'm planning on leaving. But my wife, we lived in Ottawa, my last place that I lived and coached for 8 years, and I think that I have very few times where we can pack up and move our family, even though I'm in the coaching profession.
Yeah.
And so doing that recently, I am pretty out of that free move cards for my family. I don't blame her because that's not very fun. So that's where
So
I'm at right now. And Friends is a really good place.
yeah.
There's so many positives about I mean, campus administration, Wichita. It would be really hard for me to leave.
Okay. And another question. This is kind of an interesting question. Do you guys get transfers like Division 1 does? And I'll add to that question. How does
Mhm.
that work? Like, I couldn't imagine that Friends has to deal with like NIL very much, right?
We don't deal with NIL very much. Ours is more scholarship based and putting packages together, which coaches like me, at our level are used to doing that. And so it's like, the budget NIL. It's not like hey, you got $10,000, but we're putting together, scholarship packages and work study packages and things to get these guys money and to where they're paying, nothing or the least amount possible. So we do deal with the transfer portal. I mean, at our level now, if you have a good year, a lot of guys want to move up. And
Mm,
so
yeah.
we deal with that all the time. We deal with, the transfer portal is in there, 1,000 D2 and, or more D2 and D1 transfers that are available. And so the thing about us right now, a lot of those guys are looking at higher levels. And so it's a little bit of a trickle down effect where, not saying, there aren't any options for us right now, but a lot of times our options in the recruiting for transfers at least, has moved to later in the recruiting period. We can find really good players that are available in July
Yeah.
and, or even August. I mean, you see stories like that. So it's a crazy situation at all levels right now, and it's not fun, I would say. Maybe some guys enjoy it, but I'd say the majority that I talk to, it's like, wow, this is crazy, and not the most enjoyable because we like to build relationships and do it that way. But I'm not going to sit and complain about it and act like, and whine and just, give up. We're going to roll with the punches and try to continue to win.
And one more question. Okay. I'll show it anyway because, I don't ignore questions. Here we go. Are you going to do a weekly show with Hot Zone Sports next season?
I don't know. That's a good question. I have a radio show at ESPN Wichita that I do, and so we already have a couple obligations, which is fine. I love it. So I'm not against being on this podcast more. So.
Well, that's great news to hear. Great question, Braves Lifer. I definitely wouldn't have asked that question myself, but here we are. I do want to touch a little bit on this. It's an interesting topic. Okay, I posted something a couple hours ago. It was rewinding to the 2023 Final Four, and it was just San Diego State, UConn. I don't think you had a single number one in there.
Mm-hmm.
You had Florida Atlantic, like all of these teams. My opinion is that NIL, because there is no it's kind of like when they first made cigarettes, they were waiting for people to get sick smoking cigarettes, and then they would come in and start slapping standards and policies
Mm-hmm.
on them. There has to be some kind of policies put on, like do college sports, do they just officially say, okay, we're going to do a salary cap? Like, I don't know how the NCAA is going to do this, but it's getting out of hand. Like 2023, I loved it. It was amazing because you had like 3 Cinderellas in the Final Four. You can even go back to Wichita State when they made it to the Final Four. I don't think you're going to be seeing that anymore, just strictly because of NIL. Like, you're going to have the Alabamas, you're going to have the Auburns, you're going to have all these Power 5 conferences that are just going to pour in money to these NIL, to these players for NIL. I mean, you saw K-State do it. They paid the player over $2 million, Hawkins.
Yep.
But what is your perspective as a coach on this?
Well, my opinion, and this may not be popular. I remember with the NCAA, everybody saying, hey, we got to pay these guys. They deserve money. Everybody was unhappy because the NCAA and schools are making so much money. I agree. Well, now the NCAA is like, here you go. This is what you got. This is what you want. Well, now, just like you said, and I agree, now we're like, well, we want a salary cap. You got to do this. You got to do that. I think that they're just to the point where they're not going to win, and that's a fact. We know that nobody's going to be happy with the NCAA. So, if I'm them, I'm like, well, what are you going to do? And so that's how I feel about it. And I kind of actually understand if I were in the NCAA, that you guys are going to complain, figure it out. Now, on the other side, completely agree. I feel like you see all number one seeds. Now, I don't think all that information's public, what their NIL situations are, but I would be shocked if all 4 number one seeds in the tournament did not have all top 10 NIL deals. And so when you're looking at the way it's gone, a lot of those big schools and the heavy hitters and the blue bloods, they're going to be at the top. And if everybody, which it seems like pretty much everybody is going to the portal, then they're going to get the best players that they, and so now will it always work out? KU did that, didn't work out.
Yeah.
But I promise you the majority of times it's going to work out more than the times the Cinderellas like the San Diego States who aren't paying guys and can't keep them. It's going to work out for them. So that's my opinion. I would love to see some kind of salary cap, and I'm all for players getting paid. I don't want them to be hindered, and the NCAA and these schools making millions and billions. I don't think that's cool either. So, but we want parity. We want I haven't watched a whole lot of great games in the NCAA tournament, and I hate to say it, but I think there's probably a correlation.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of like Wichita State. They lost a lot of players to the portal, and KU they lost 3 players to the portal. They're gonna have to just completely retool, but it's just, and it's not just men's sports, because it came out last week within the first week of the transfer portal opening. I mean, you heard of players, Scottie Pippen's son, they lost in this. Actually, they didn't lose in the Sweet 16. They won, and he entered into the transfer portal. And it's just like there's got to be a way to, like, you don't have to restrict, like, okay, it's got to be a salary cap or nothing, but at least change the date, because that would be like, okay, the Chiefs are playing in the divisional round, and Mahomes says, I'm not going to play here anymore, and just go sit on the couch until he's able to sign another free agent contract or something like that. It's just, that's too much.
I agree. That doesn't make any sense. I'm sure that I don't know that they care, but I'm sure that they're aware that that's probably not good. You have to move it to after the national championship game in any sport. I also, being a small school guy that wants to graduate people, I mean, how many of these people are credits transferring? Are they on track to graduate? I mean, to me, that's something that nobody talks about. Like, I mean, you got these guys that are in the transfer portal every year. Well, I mean, are you even looking at that? And, if you're dealing with millions of dollars or, whatever that they're getting, they probably aren't. But for me, I'm like, that doesn't make sense if you're trying to be a student athlete. That doesn't make sense to me if you're transferring every year, because we deal with that. We look at credits and we see what transfers, and I know everything doesn't. So there's a lot of wasted, academics out there. But that if you're dealing with the top 2% in NCAA, football or men's basketball, that the money that they're getting, it doesn't matter about your academics. Now, if you're looking at the other 98% in most every other sport, that's probably something you're looking at. So it just depends.
Yeah, it's like, it just depends on the university. Like Notre Dame, they're not going to just accept anybody. But places like Alabama, Auburn, sorry, Auburn fans, War Eagle, all right, sorry, but you're gonna be able to accept players like that. I mean,
right.
But when it comes to the transfer portal, you also have to worry about, Auburn, for example. They have a 24-year-old player, a 22, 21. Like, I saw something today where somebody said that they just need to go ahead and call AARP. But I mean, it's just, there's got to be some type of restriction for how long you can stay in college, because there was a tight end out of Miami that was in his late 20s. And so, there's got to be something going on. But if there's one thing I know about the NCAA, is that they will not fix anything until it's completely broken.
Yeah, no, like I said earlier, it's a bad situation now. My biggest worry is that teams and schools are going to go off on their own and leave the NCAA.
Yeah.
I was talking about, with one of my buddies about that. Like, I love watching golf, PGA Tour. Well, you have all these great golfers that went to Live Golf, and I asked him, how many tournaments of Live have you watched? Same as me, I haven't watched any. And so you're missing out and watching all these great, and I'm not saying I wouldn't, but I mean, if you have the SEC leave and be its own entity, it's just going to water it down for me, and it's going to make me less motivated to watch it. So I feel like It's better all the best competition being together. Let's figure it out. And what if that's the NCAA needing to step up and get it figured out sooner than later? Let's do that. And whatever they decide, if you're gonna, everybody's gonna talk trash and kill them again, they're not gonna care again. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like it's not a good situation.
Yeah, it's definitely not a good situation for the NCAA.
Mm-hmm.
So, are you ready to give any predictions for the Final Four?
I think, like I said earlier, right now, if I had to pick, I think Duke is playing better than everybody. They've been really impressive, and I hate to say it. And if I had to pick a second, it would be Houston would win it because they just play elite defense and play so hard. If I could pick, like I picked early, I still think I'm on the Florida bandwagon. I like the way they play, and I would prefer them to win. But I just want some close basketball games.
I would prefer Houston to win. But here's what I will say about Duke. You got Mark Sears from Alabama. He goes off for 34 points, makes 10 3-pointers. And then he plays Duke, and what's he end up with 6 points?
Mm-hmm.
It's like these teams that are playing Duke, the game prior, they will absolutely just play an amazing game.
Mm-hmm.
And then once they play Duke, I don't know what it is. I don't see John Shire as a great coach. He was put in a great position, but he hasn't won a national championship yet.
Mm-hmm.
So until that happens, he won't be in that bracket for me. Bruce Pearl, to me, he's a good coach, solid coach. But out of all these coaches in the Final Four, it's got to be Kelvin Sampson, and that's who I'm gonna go with to win it. I'm always gonna go with coaching. Who is the best coach?
Mm-hmm.
Because that is gonna be in the tough, grind it out type of moments. Coaching will always matter, and so I just gotta go with the Cougs, man.
I don't disagree, and I'm a Big 12 guy, obviously liking KU, and so I think going with the Big 12. I definitely do not want Duke to win. Let me get that straight. I hate Duke, and so for various reasons, no thanks. Yeah. Big 12, Houston, I'll take it, and then for really my bracket purposes, which I don't have any money on, so it doesn't even really matter.
Me either.
But just to say that I was smart at the beginning, Florida. So those are my picks.
I'm leading my bracket right now. We had a Hot Zone Sports bracket where I invited all the followers, and I'm leading that. Only 7 people are in it, so whatever. But yeah, I don't know. If I had to pick between my bracket or Duke winning the national championship, you can throw my bracket in the trash. That's how much I dislike them. But I will tell you, maybe K-State, maybe they'll be able to actually win a game in the NCAA tournament next year or get invited. I'm not sure. I'm trying to get Jerome Tang to come on the show, but I'm just not getting any love.
Mm-hmm.
All right. But we will go ahead and end that show. Did you want to mention where everybody can follow you on Twitter or whatnot?
Sure. Yeah, I'm pretty easily accessible. I use our friends' men's basketball account. My tagline is McClintock Phil, and so, but you can find me on there. I'm on more active on Twitter. I feel like that's more basketball related. I do have an Instagram. I don't use it that much, and I also have a Facebook that I've been on forever, but that's for old people, and I don't do a whole lot of basketball stuff. That's more for families. So, yeah, McClintock Phil on Twitter is my Twitter tagline, I believe.
Yeah,
give me a follow.
I've been told that Facebook is for old people, but
that's what they say. I don't know.
I got 30,000 followers on Facebook, so I don't know what to do with that type of information.
No, I didn't say that to offend anybody. That's just what people tell me. And I'm 38, so I am kind of old. And so I just embrace that.
Gosh, I'm older than you. I don't like myself now.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I just want to thank Phil McClintock for coming onto the show. It has been 100% my pleasure.
Yep.
Great banter back and forth. I absolutely love it. And I wish you and Friends University nothing but the best. I'll have to make it to a couple of games next season and
Yep.
do a live stream on it.
Awesome.
But yeah,
Anytime.
anytime you want to come on, just give me a shout.
Cool.
And on that note, we will go ahead and send you off with a nice little video.